Hey, Vinyl community, we are here to join you once again. And it's not Thursday, though. We have changed the nights of the week just to shake things up a little bit. But we are here to talk about our top 5 Beach Boys songs. Beach Boys are a band that we all are big fans of, and we have managed to whittle our list down to 5 songs and 1 honorable mention. I'm joined, of course, by Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll, Josh from JC Flipside Vinyl, Chris Profi from Chris Profi Musically Obsessed, and Aaron Mutha Alamere, like every week. If you're just tuning in for the first time, this is our crew that we roll with every week. And so we're going to start with our honorable mentions. And to my right is Gary. Gary, why don't you kick us off with your first your only honorable mention.
Okay, well, for mine, I picked one from Pet Sounds. That's probably maybe not the one that most people would pick, but the song Here Today, I've always liked that song. I like the melody of it, the way it's sung. I just like the instruments of it. I know that it's not like there's a lot more meaningful songs, I guess, on Pet Sounds, but I just really like that song. It's just one of those start to finish songs that I really like. So that's my honorable mention Here Today.
Well, the thing I love about that song, and I'm going to break in, like when everybody gives their pick, I know I'm going to be like, well, let me tell you what I like about that song. But the thing I like about that song is, it just kind of follows a standard verse, chorus, verse. And then there's this instrumental break at the end where it's just like it totally goes off the rails. It sounds at one point like it's almost like some kind of like marching band beat.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes into that, doot, 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 and then the marching band part, and then you got the whole doot, 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 doot. It's like, where does that come from? Who else manages to just shove all that stuff into an instrumental break? There's not a guitar solo, there's not an organ solo, there's no solo at all, where you would typically have a solo in a song. Instead, you've got like this weird like instrumental, and he's going off here and then brings it all back around to the chorus again. It's like, that's the brilliance of Brian Wilson.
I think with that song, it's like what you just said. It's it's like kind of a typical Beach Boys song in a way, but then they add the whole Pet Sounds way to it. They add all that stuff in that you just said, and it just makes it for a cool song.
Yeah. All right, Josh, you're next.
All right. So to start off, I'm going to just tell everybody that before this week, I pretty much knew the hits and Pet Sounds. That was really it. I'm going to be completely honest. I had never listened to anything other than Pet Sounds and the hits that were on the radio. So I did do a deep dive this week, and I promise that there'll be a couple of cuts that, I aren't major hits. But my honorable mention is a major hit because I think it's one of the greatest pop songs ever written, and that's going to be California Girls. What I love about this song is, even though it is such a pop song, when I hear a lot of pop music from today, sometimes the lyrics are kind of cringy because you're kind of like, okay, they're just trying to rhyme words. It doesn't really make sense. But that song is just perfect in every single way, whether it be music or lyrics. Plus, David Lee Roth covered it, and I love David Lee Roth. So California Girls will be my honorable mention.
I thought that was a David Lee Roth song. I didn't know that was a Beach Boys.
Yeah, man. It's shocking.
Oh. Very cool. You learned something.
Didn't the Beach Boys sang background on that, didn't they? On his remake?
Yeah.
I thought.
Without John Stamos.
Well, then it doesn't count.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, Chris.
All right, well, I'm going to pull a song off of one of my favorite Beach Boys albums, Beach Boys Love You. And this actually was originally going to be called Brian Loves You. It was going to be a Brian Wilson solo record. I'm going to go with the first song on here, Let's Go On This Way. And I love this. This album has a lot of synth work on it, and you wouldn't really usually associate synth with the Beach Boys, but that was what was kind of cool and quirky about this record. I love the harmonies of the chorus of this song. And I believe Carl Wilson is doing the lead vocal on this, but then there's like this middle part where Mike Love comes in and the whole song changes and the words are, seems we have extrasensory perception. And they go into this weird sort of thing there because the idea of the song is about picking up a girl at school. And then suddenly Mike Love comes in with this weird like extrasensory perception thing. But that's what I like about this album in general is it's out there. It's quirky. A lot of people don't really dig this record that much, but I like it. And I had to put a song on here. I mean, I couldn't put it in the top 5, but definitely have to make an honorable mention for me.
And I love that in that part too, they rhyme new walls with blue balls.
Yep. Yeah. And what's strange is a lot of people don't realize, but Blackie Lawless from Wasp actually sings background vocals. He was a young lad at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's how he got into the music business.
Yeah. But I'm going to tell anybody out there, if you like the Beach Boys, but you've never listened to this record, check it out. I mean, it's not for everybody, but it's quirky. And if any, I just got this thought too, like if anybody's into They Might Be Giants, they probably owe a lot to this record because it sounds a lot like they would eventually go on to do. So I think, it's gained some cult status. I think a lot of people have looked back at it now and say, hey, maybe it's more influential than we thought it was at the time.
When you say people don't associate synth work with the Beach Boys, but they were doing that as far back as Holland, like the song Funky Pretty.
Yeah.
The last song on that album, that is totally like a synthesizer, keyboard. There's nothing on there except, there's a little bit of drum and bass, but
right.
The primary instrument in that is a synthesizer.
Well, see, I usually make one mistake a day, and there's my mistake right there.
Well, there's not a mistake. You were very accurate in that the Beach Boys incorporated, synthesizers into theirs.
Yeah, and that's a really cool song too. And I think, and again, I think that's what I really like about this album too, is that it's just all over the place with the synths and everything, and just the quirky lyrics. But yeah, I definitely have to put a song from this album on my list.
Yeah. Okay, Aaron.
So I have my 11 honorable mentions.
Yeah. You can't talk about any one of them, but you can give your entire list.
No, that's all right. I'll just do one. So my one, I'm going to put, I had a bunch of their big hits and all that I really love their old stuff, but I had to put this song on here just because I love it. And I'm sure it's not on anybody else's list. And it's Fall Breaks and Back to Winter, the Woody Woodpecker Symphony. And I actually really love this song. It reminds me kind of like a Pink Floyd type song, like from Ummagumma or something. And it's all just an instrumental, but it's dark and haunting and psychedelic kind of, and that's why I like it so much. And I just really love that song. And this is my favorite Beach Boys record, so it'll have a lot on here. But
what is that record?
Mentions other than that.
I Always Smile.
Oh, yeah, is that what it was?
Well, in that track originally, that was called The Elements, and there was a song called Fire. And so basically they kind of took the rhythm track from Fire, and then they incorporated the Woody Woodpecker Symphony into it. And it's sort of like a hybrid of both of those. But there's a whole story behind the Elements suite, but we won't get into that here. But I'm sure Beach Boys fans who are watching already know what I'm talking about. All right. So anyway, speaking of the Smile album, that is my honorable mention. Although it was recorded during the sessions for the Smile album, it actually first appeared on this album, 2020. And I'm talking about a song called Cabin Essence. And
I love that song.
Yeah, it was one of the first. You had a couple of tracks that were recorded for Smiley Smile, and then you had on Wild Honey, Mama Says. I don't think there was anything that appeared on Friends, but Cabin Essence and Our Prayer are both on 2020. And Cabin Essence, if that had come out in 1967 before Sgt. Pepper, I don't think Sergeant Pepper would have had such a huge kind of reputation as being kind of groundbreaking, because the stuff Brian Wilson was recording, and this was probably recorded in late 1966, keeping that in mind, it's like nothing else the Beach Boys have recorded before or since. And it's really kind of a tale about the railroads and the fact that, you know, they were infringing on the Native American territories and the whole industrialization of America and what America lost as a result of progress. And so it's just a unique song, to say the least. But if people had heard that in 1967, I mean, it really would have blown their minds. But it's a great, just the vocals on it, the instrumentation. If you haven't checked it out yet, which if you're a Beach Boys fan, I find that hard to believe, but I had to get it on my list somewhere. So that's my honorable mention.
Cool.
All right, we're now into our number 5. So Gary.
So I have a question first for you, Jeff. Did Daryl Dragon play on any Beach Boys records, or was he just in the touring band?
I'm sure he probably played on some of their tracks, a track or two in the early 70s. I couldn't name which one, but I would say probably he did. But right now I can't think of any that he might have played on. But for some reason, I'm thinking like, you know, those early 70s Beach Boys records, he probably contributed to.
I was just curious. And when did Bruce Johnson join the band?
That would have been like 1966.
Oh, wow. So real early
Glenn Campbell, actually, Brian Wilson had a nervous breakdown and stopped touring in 1964, like the end of 1964. And Glenn Campbell actually joined them for a tour. And then Bruce Johnson was recruited to join them as part of the touring band. And so I think probably like maybe like the Today album, or at the very latest, Summer Days, and might have been the album that he first participated in, but I know it was 1965.
Anyway, now onto my thing. I just had a couple questions go through my head.
Sure.
I figured, hey, I got the Beach Boys expert here. I'm gonna ask these questions.
And I know somebody will set me straight in the comment section if that's not accurate, but
Well, that's what's great about YouTube. Okay, my number 5 would be so this comes off of That's Why God Made the Radio. I think isn't that the title of it? This would be their last studio album. And the song is it's actually 2 songs, but I feel like the one is just a prelude to the other. Pacific Coast Highway and Summer's Gone. To me, those songs, the rest of that album is kind of hit and miss. You know, it's got some good songs, it's got some fluff, but I think those 2 songs, to me, they stand up to other great Beach Boys songs. And the song Summer's Gone, to me, it just feels like that's the Beach Boys saying, you know, hey, farewell. You know, this, because, you know, they're not going to make another record, I would assume, at this point. And if they don't, then the fact that that was the last song on that album, it's just perfect. It's a perfect ending. You know, it's got metaphors. You know, it's about getting older, basically, and saying, hey, you know, it's been great. We've had a great time. You know, we're saying goodbye to old friends, and some of the old friends are gone. Summer is gone. I'm into the fall, into the winter of my life type thing. And it's just, you know, the vocals on it are great. The production, to me, it almost sounds like something that could have fit on Pet Sounds. You know, I'm not saying maybe it matches that, but in my mind, it does. To these ears, it does. And I just love that song. And it's just one that you just kind of, I can put on and you just kind of sit back and you just reminisce. That's exactly what that song is. And but the older you get, sometimes songs like that, they just mean more to you. And that's the way I feel about that song. That song just resonates. So that's my number 5 thing.
Very cool. Yeah, I kind of hope that's the last Beach Boys album, because that's a great way to go out.
Yeah, that song would be perfect.
Mhm. All right, Josh.
All right, so my number 5, I had never heard before this week, and I absolutely fell in love with it the first time I heard it. And I've listened to it probably like 10 times since I first heard the song. And it's off Surf's Up, their album from 1970. And it's a song called Feels Flow. I believe that's what it's called. Yep, checking my phone. Feels Flow. Yeah. So, Jeff, you could probably tell me more about that song, but I can tell you that instantaneously, I was like, how could I have never heard this song? It definitely resonated with me. But go ahead, Jeff. You fill me in with what that song's about or anything about that album.
Yeah, well, I mean, that album definitely, I think is a highlight of their early 70s work. That always reminded me of Buffalo Springfield a little bit. Like, you got that, guitar break, and it's just kind of a, that sort of sleigh bell kind of like rhythm is like choo 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 choo, like the whole way through the song. And it's a great Carl Wilson vocal. And it's just, great harmonies, but it's a song unlike there's so many songs on that album that are unlike, the Beach Boys. And they were trying to step out of their 60s shadow. They were trying to record more contemporary sounding music. Even though the title track, Surf's Up, was I don't want to say reject, but it was a track that dated back to the Smile sessions. But in every other way, they were trying to update their sound. They're contemporary. They were trying to look more contemporary. There were some topical, political, socially conscious songs on there. Student demonstration time, A Day in the Life of a Tree, which has some environmental message. But yeah, Surf's Up's a great album. And that was on the playlist, I think, that I sent to you, because I that's one of my favorite tracks off that album.
It was fantastic. Loved it.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chris.
All right, my number 5, I'm going with the title track off of Wild Honey. And this is just a killer record in general. They were kind of bringing more of like an R&B soul vibe to this. And I was listening to the song again today. I'm like, what the hell is that instrument in the background? And I had to look it up. And I think theremin. Am I right, Jeff?
Yeah, it's the same instrument they use at the end of Good Vibrations.
Yeah, and I should have known that, but I looked it up, and it's such a cool sound to that song. And this album, like Love You, I really think that they just changed their direction, it was almost refreshing to hear something different, because it doesn't sound like typical Beach Boys type stuff, and that's why I think I like it. I tend to go to the later stuff. Not that I don't like the early stuff, but I tend to go like Pet Sounds and beyond. So yeah, the title track on this album is killer.
Well, and the theremin is an instrument that was first used in horror movies.
Yep.
Right.
In like the 40s and 50s. Woo! And I think the band that most recently used it is Portishead. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but Portishead used it. I forget which song they used it for, but it's very prominent at the beginning of one of their songs. But yeah, it's interesting that looking for new sounds and kind of new textures, the Beach Boys picked up on that. And Brian, I think, was one of the first to use it at the end of that.
Yeah.
At the end of Good Vibrations. All right, Aaron.
That also bled into hard rock, heavy metal too, with Tesla using the theremin.
And Led Zeppelin, a whole lot of love.
Yeah.
So, cool. So my number 5 is from Pet Sounds. And when I was a kid, we had this on 8-track. So I've heard this album my whole life. And the song that when I was young that I always loved the most was Sloop John B. And that's the one I'm picking for number 5. I just love that song. Just love how the happy nature of it. And it's a cool, really quirky story, the sea shanty almost. And I just love that song. And it's actually one of my very favorite songs on this record. I don't know. I just always go back to it. Whenever I think of the Beach Boys in my head, that's the first thing that pops in my head usually is Sloop John B. I don't know why. Probably just because I heard it when I was so young. And
It's
driving
a
around.
remake.
It's what?
It's a remake from the Kingston Trio too. I mean,
Yeah, well, they did a folk. They were like a folk version. They changed the lyrics
Right.
a bit. The Boys did, and updated it. But yeah,
Yeah.
But I just love that song. So
I love that song too. That's one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. It's that. I love that.
Good tune.
it just gives you that whole the Beach Boys vibe of the ocean, and I just it's
Yeah.
weird how they put you in that mood. Living in Idaho, I feel like I'm at the beach. No beach here. But that song puts me in that mindset. And a lot of theirs do that. That's why I like them a lot. And I like a lot of their really early stuff as well. So
So do I.
Well, there's some controversy about whether or not that song was actually intended to be on Pet Sounds and if Capitol Records made them put it on Pet Sounds to make it a little more commercial. I've heard both stories. I've heard, yeah, it was always supposed to be on there. And then I've heard, no, it was a record company pressure just because it's like the one cover song on that entire album. What's it doing there? But, it's a great track. I'm glad it is on there, but.
it was our first single from that too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was-
I love that songs, but it's not my.
I
it's my
was
second-
thinking. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I'm sorry. I was thinking that was like one of the first ones that they worked on, like around that led into those sessions, because what's his name came up with Al Jardine supposedly brought the vocals to Brian Wilson and said, hey, can you do something with this? And he said, yeah. He put that arrangement to it and he started adding the different stuff to it. And that kind of led, to what would be Pet Sounds.
Right.
I wanted to put that on my list there and I went back and forth. I'm so glad you talked about it because I love that song.
Mm-hmm. Well, this album and this pressing should look familiar to you, Aaron. But my number 5 pick is off Pet Sounds. I'm going with Wouldn't It Be Nice? It's the first track on the album, but I love the intro to California Girls. I love the intro to Wouldn't It Be Nice? The Beach Boys have such memorable intros too, and Wouldn't It Be Nice is one of my favorite. And this is one of the first Beach Boy tracks I remember hearing. It was a single that I first heard it on. And I just love that. It's so like perfect. And then the lyrics about, wouldn't it be nice if we were older? And it's sort of like the counterpoint to When I Grew Up to Be a Man, which is, that's very much a song about, God, I'm kind of afraid of getting older. And I don't know if I want the responsibility of being a man and having to be mature and have responsibilities. And then you've got Wouldn't It Be Nice, which is, man, I can't wait to grow up. Wouldn't it be nice if we were older? Then we wouldn't have to, it's just like this whole like wish list of all the things like when I'm older, I can't wait, to do. And it's just romanticized the whole idea of like, I can't wait till we can get married. And then when we're married, everything is going to be perfect. Which is hilarious, right? But yeah, it's just it's so naive, but at the same time, it's just beautiful and romantic. And, I love listening to tracks like this as they're being built up in the Pet Sound Session box set, hearing, Brian in the studio directing the musicians and having them run through take after take. But yeah, this is one of my earliest Beach Boy memories. And I think that's why I've got some nostalgia for it. And that's why it's on my list ahead of some of the other great Pet Sound tracks.
And if we had a top 10, that would have made mine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bunch, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that song.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Fantastic.
Number 4.
Yeah, there's that just one more thing on your pick, because that is a great pick. That's another one, just like Aaron's, that I was like, back and forth trying to cut this shit down to get it down to 5 songs. But like you said, that intro is so fantastic. The way it comes into that, then that snare drum goes crack, and they go into the song, and it's almost like it's written from the perspective of a young teenager, because I mean, it kind of alludes like also like, well, if we were older, we could have sex, I mean, we could sleep together. We wouldn't have to worry about our mom and dad telling us what to do, kind of thing. It's very innocent. It's very naive, but it fits perfectly. Like if you're 14 hearing that song, you've got a girlfriend or whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's just, it is perfectly written for that. It's great. And the Beach Boys have songs like that are written in that perspective. And that song's just perfect. That's a great song. That's a super good pick. Okay, on to mine. What did I pick? For number 4, Heroes and Villains.
Love that song.
I love this song. Sometimes I feel like people write songs that are like quirky and they do it just to be weird. But I feel like this song is a quirky song. It's all over the place, but it really works. I mean, it's like a couple different songs put together. And, the way they have these different harmonies going in there at times in that song. And somehow they're not just regular harmony. We talk about how great the Beach Boys are at harmonies, but these are like odd harmonies too. And the way they splice that together, I feel like when I listen to that song, that's one of those times, sometimes I think, people, they throw around the words, they use the word genius about Brian Wilson, and some people go, yeah, he wrote all these stupid, beach songs and stuff. But when you hear a song like that and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I see how, the fact that he could come up with this oddball combination of things, but create such a beautiful song, that you can still sing along with, and I know that I told, you, Jeff, and Aaron last week that I feel like that's the Yes song, Leave It. The way they start out, I feel like they just totally ripped it off. They go, do chicka do chicka do chicka do chicka do chicka do chicka do. One time, one to go. That sounds to me like they just took it right out of Heroes and Villains. The way that they have all those different harmonies, and that's just, to me, that song is weird, but yet it's a complete song. It's not weird just to be weird. It all works. And plus, I'm a comic book fan, so Heroes and Villains, I mean, it all goes together, and I love that song. So that's my pick on that.
And that's the first song on Smiley Smile.
Yeah.
Aaron's
Yes, it is.
favorite album. Yeah.
Love it.
Here's the crazy thing. That is my number 4 pick, Heroes and Villains. I had never heard it before this adventure that we're on. And at first, I have to admit, Gary, I was like, this is a weird friggin' song. But somehow I was gravitated towards it. And I listened to the mono and the stereo version. And it's just a fantastic song. And it's weird, but like you said, it doesn't feel forced. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to make some trippy ass song that you guys will, trip out to. It was perfect in an odd way. And I loved it. And I was thinking to myself, no one's going to pick this damn song. I didn't know if it was a hit or not, but I was like, it appeals to me. So I'm glad someone else picked it. It's a great song.
When I think Brian Wilson spent more time on that track than any other, including Good Vibrations. And that was reasons why the Smile Sessions unraveled, because he could never bring it in for a landing. He was just dissatisfied. And he had at one point, I think it was like 6 minutes or 7 minutes long. There's a version on the Smile Sessions, which I think is around, 5.5 minutes, something like that. It's got the whole In the Cantina section, which is not on the single, so the version that was on Smiley Smile. But yeah, he definitely labored over that and the harmonies and the arrangements and how it was structured. And it definitely was a track that he spent more time on, I think, than any other in his career. So,
Do you know, Jeff, when it, when it stops and it, and then they go into that slow part of the verses there, dun, 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 dun. I can't think of the words right now. Who's singing that?
I've been in this town so long.
Yeah. Who is that? Who is singing that part?
Well, I think it's Al Jardine.
Real?
Or,
okay.
or Brian Wilson. I'm not sure. See, that's the thing, and we were talking about this off camera before we started. It's for me, it's hard to separate. Okay, is it Al? Is it Carl? Is it Brian? I think it's Brian. I think it's Brian singing that part. I know it's Brian.
Okay.
But that slow part, where to ride in the rough and sunny down snuff, I'm all right.
Well, that part is so awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that part is sung. That's why I was really curious who was singing lead vocal right
Yeah,
now.
that part is Brian for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're learning.
Yeah. Well, and I don't, like I say, I know a lot about the Beach Boys, but I'm sure there are people watching who know a lot more than I do, and won't
I doubt it.
be about clarifying. But Chris, your number 4.
Well, my number 4 is my earliest song on my list, and I'm going with Surfer Girl, 1963, and I have it on the Endless Summer comp. I've always loved this song. Just a great love song, and typical Beach Boys arrangement and harmonies, and I never get tired of hearing it. It's the love song through the theme of the beach and surfing and all that, and it should be cheesy, but it's not. And the vocals by Brian Wilson on it, and just a killer song.
Love it.
I wish I had something really like interesting to say about it, but I just really like the song.
It's a killer song.
It is.
Well, the melody
I
is
like-
based on "If You Wish Upon a Star," the Disney song. But
Really?
Oh yeah.
Gene Simmons version.
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Aaron.
So number 4,
Mhm.
Good Vibrations. Love that song. It's my second favorite off this record. So yeah, it's just the theremin in it, the lyrics. I'm sure Jeff will tell us all about it because it's a great song. And it's another one where when I think of the Beach Boys, it's like Sloop John B, Good Vibrations. Those things pop in my head almost first. I love the lyrics, and it's just a great song. And every time you hear it, it never really gets old. Even if you've heard it a million times on commercials and everything, you can hear it again on vinyl, and it just sounds fresh still. That's why I like it so much.
Mhm.
I love the cover artwork of that album too.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's a
I
lot.
love that.
Well, and that house is actually the house that was originally the part of the Smile artwork, with the lips with the smile on it. So that's like the only remaining vestige of the original artwork from the Smile album.
Great album.
Yeah.
Great song.
Love it.
Well, my number 4, and I struggled because I love the song California Girls, and it's on this album also. But if this had been a top 10, California Girls would have easily made the top 10. But I am going for Let 'Em Run Wild,
Great
which
song.
also on this album. And there's definitely that Pet Sounds vibe. Like Brian Wilson was already kind of thinking of those kind of majestic, bombastic tracks with the Wrecking Crew, and knowing exactly what note each instrument was going to play and how it was going to sound. But Let 'Em Run Wild is actually, Brian Wilson lyric, which is very interesting because it's such I think it's one of the best lyrics he's ever written. The rhymes that he's comes up with, like now that you don't need him, well, he can have his freedom. Just like lines like that, like, that's so clever. And, but it's kind of like you're going to lose that girl, but like the girl, this is a guy trying to convince the girl, like, look, you don't need this douchebag, get rid of him. Sort of obviously the underlying motive is because I want to be with you. But it's just a great track. I love everything about it. I love the harmonies. I love just the whole, it's got brass on it. It's got the whole wrecking crew there. And definitely could have fit very easily along all the other songs on Pet Sounds. It really sounds like it's off Pet Sounds because the production and everything on it is very similar.
Cool.
All right, now we're into number 3, Gary.
Okay, well, Chris kind of already talked about it, but my number 3 pick would be Wild Honey.
Nice.
I love the Carl Wilson vocal on it because it sounds, the way he's singing it, it's very kind of soulful and almost like screeching at times. The way, I actually thought that Dennis was singing that for the longest time, but I love that song and I love the theremin, throughout the whole song. And it's just, he already talked about it quite a bit, but I think that's just a fantastic song. I love Wild Honey.
Well, I agree with you.
Well, thank you, sir.
Chris, I love you have the Japanese press. That's so cool.
You like that, right?
I love it.
Yeah, he's just showing off now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a lot of Japanese pressings, so I'm like, when I have one, I'm gonna just keep showing. I have this, and I have Joni Mitchell Mingus, which is a random album to have a Japanese pressing of, but I think those are the only 2 I have.
Okay.
I'm crazy about it. Some people are like, "Oh, you got to go Japanese pressing." I'm like, I mean, if I come across it, I will. But
I love how they sound myself.
Yeah.
We got about 20 or 30 of them. They're great.
No, they definitely do sound good though. It's just price.
Yeah. So
All
my
right.
number 3 is a major hit by this band, like a major hit.
Kokomo?
No, Kokomo. It's off Pet Sounds, and it's God Only Knows. And I know some people might think that's overplayed, but here's the thing about this song. First off, it's kind of twisted when you think about it. He's basically saying he's going to off himself. You know what I mean? If this girl's not in his life. But the thing about this song is when they get to the crescendo, the climax of this song, it is so powerful to me. Everybody knows hopefully what I'm talking about. It's probably been in a million movies, but with the harmonies and him and Brian Wilson singing God Only Knows What I'd Be Without You. I mean, it is just, to me, it is what I love about music. It makes parts of songs like that make the hair on my arm stand up. Because it's like, wow, could you imagine, we just did this contest, go back and listen to an album for the first time or something. I can't imagine, I probably heard this as a child, but hearing this song for the first time, it's that's something that's got to stay with you. It's just a perfect song. It just shows that Brian Wilson is a genius. And it's probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest songs of all time. So, and it's my number 3. So there's 2 I think are better.
Nice.
Yeah. I like the way that song, it starts out with, I may not always love you. That's like a weird way to start out this song with that line, because you're like, wait a minute, what do you mean? You may not always love me.
Yeah.
What's that? And then he goes into it, with the rest of it. I think that him throwing that line in there to start it out was kind of
Brilliant.
Once again. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, okay, well, like, he's got his defenses up. But then when he opens up to his real self, he's just like, oh, what good would living do? if you weren't with me. So it's almost like he's acting like a strong man at first, and then his weakness comes through. And it's such a vulnerable song. Yeah, it's just fantastic. And I do love these songs that people are like, oh, like this is our song. Well, you do realize that's a song about offing yourself if you would ever leave, right? But if people, I'm sure people have had it as their wedding song, you know? It's
Well,
crazy.
Some people have used Every Breath You Take for a wedding
Exactly.
song too, and that's kind of screwed up, but you know.
When my sister was younger, she had a boyfriend that every week they were together and apart. And she goes, you know what our song is? And I said, Against All Odds by Phil Collins. Because at that point, your relationship is not heading in the right direction.
That's a great song, by the way. I love it.
Yeah, it is.
Did you guys ever hear Bowie's version of God Only Knows?
No.
Yeah, it's I forget what album it's off of, but and I'm not kidding. It's he really did a cover of it. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the Beach Boys version better, but I didn't know if you guys had ever heard Bowie's version. It might be
I will
the
soon.
album tonight, maybe.
You know,
80s Bowie.
Yeah, I think it's 80s Bowie.
Okay.
yeah, I've never heard it. You brought up another good point though, Josh. What, you know, when you use the word vulnerability, and that's in a lot of Beach Boys songs, you know, regardless of what the title might say, you know, there's just, you know, In My Room is another song that makes you, you know, I would use the word vulnerability in that song, just a lot of them. But,
Yeah, and that may be on my list. There's a theme with my top three.
yeah, I'm not saying.
All right, Chris.
Sail on, sailor, sailor, whatever key that's in. I love the song. The first song is Holland, and I'm jealous because Gary has it on vinyl. I've got to get it on.
Can't see with it. Whoa,
Whoa, hello.
I kicked my tripod.
And I
You
know
get the scenic tour.
I've been waiting because I know the original vinyl came with a 7-inch included in it, and I want to find it with that. But just a great album, great song, and I'm going to turn. I want to ask Jeff here because I was looking who did the vocals on this, and I was reading up. It said Carl and Dennis both tried to do the vocals and they couldn't. So then they had Blondie Chaplin. Now, explain to me where it says that Blondie Chaplin was a South African musician. So how the heck did he get involved with the Beach Boys?
Yeah, I think the Beach Boys saw them. I think they were in a group called The Flame or something like that. And so the Beach Boys saw them and thought, wow, they're just what we need because we need more like street cred, or they just kind of wanted to contemporize their sound. And so they invited them in for the Carl and the Passions album. I think the first one that they actually appeared on. Yeah, which is the first album at double CD. But yeah, it's just kind of odd because that album had been recorded without Sail on Sailor, and Brian Wilson collaborated on that track with Van Dyke Parks, who he had also collaborated on a lot of the tracks for the Smile album. And there was a demo of the two of them, that song that they recorded, and they brought that to the record executives, and they were like, yes, that track is awesome, put that on the album. And so they went into the studio, Brian wouldn't sing on it, and so they got Blondie Chaplin, or however you pronounce his name, to do the vocals on it. But yeah, it's a fantastic track.
Because it makes me think of their live album, Beach Boys in Concert, which I think came out after this, because I think they do Sail on Sailor live on that. And I think that Blondie Chaplin is on that live album. That's a really good live record.
Yeah, no, it really is.
It's simply called In Concert, I want to say.
Yeah, it's way better than Concert, which came out in like 64, I think.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One that's
But
got
Sail on
Monster
Sailor,
Mash on it.
I love it. Love it.
Good pick.
All right, Aaron.
My number 3?
Yep.
Well, this was two people's number 4, Heroes and Villains. My number 3.
Nice.
Always
I
been
should
my
have put that
favorite.
on.
What's that?
I should have put that on my list. I might change my list.
And what's that? What's that? Is like a slide whistle they use all through that, or some weird instrument on Heroes and Villains?
What about Heroes and Villains?
Is that like a slide whistle they use in it or something? Or what kind of instrument is that? That weird whistle sound?
Oh, it could have been. It's probably the same instrument that they used on Running with the Devil.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're absolutely right, actually.
Yeah.
A kazoo?
No,
Because
but I just love Heroes and Villains. It's I was surprised anyone else had it, to tell you the truth. It's always been one of my favorite songs of them. And yeah, you guys have already talked about it enough, so that's a great song. Love it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. My number 3 is going to be off the album, which I've been championing lately. I love that poster, by the way.
This is the
remember
original
that.
poster. This is that comes with Endless Summer.
Oh, nice. I've never seen that. I've had
I
like
saw
10
that
different
on.
summer. I've never seen that poster.
He used to have a friend had that on his wall.
Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to step on your toes.
No, that's all right. So mine is going to be number 3 is Don't Hurt My Little Sister. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, I thought you were going to put Hey Little Tomboy on your list.
Yeah, well, it was a toss-up, honestly. But yeah, that's about this album is great, except for My Baby and Don't Hurt My Little Sister, maybe. But side 2, it's a track on here called She Knows Me Too Well. And I love the hell out of that song. It's just the harmonies, the melody. It's just got a descending vocal line to it. And Brian Wilson's falsetto as the song fades out is just so gorgeous. It's one of my favorite Brian Wilson vocals on any track. It's a haunting track. But, like Brian Wilson's recorded so many songs where he's like, yeah, I've been kind of an asshole. And, I've done things, I've cheated on you, I haven't treated you very well. And like the whole, on Pet Sounds, You Still Believe in Me. It's sort of the same theme about, even though I'm an asshole, you still believe in me. This is the same idea about, even though, I look at other girls, even though, I don't treat you very well. You know me so well. Nobody knows me like you do. And, it's sort of like, God, I'm so lucky to be with you because anybody else would have dumped me a long time ago. It's kind of the theme of the whole song, but it is just great. If you haven't checked it out yet, it is one of my favorite deep tracks on any Beach Boy album. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous track. Aaron's nodding his head, so he knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, I just love that track. And I'm sorry I can't rank it higher, but it is great.
Yeah, I just listened to that again today. It's a really good song.
Mm-hmm.
It would have made my top 12, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up there. It's a good one.
All right, now we're into number 2.
So my number 2 is probably, I don't know, you guys probably would disagree, but for number 2, I put Do It Again. I don't know. I love that effect they have on the snare, where they've got like a little bit of delay on it or whatever they do on that. And to me, that's like, because that was like, that song came out in the late 60s, like around 68 or something. But it has the feel of an early Beach Boys song. And I think to me, it's one of my favorite Mike Love lead vocals. And just the whole thing of like, getting back together with some old friends, let's get back, let's do it again. It just kind of, I love the feel of it. It's one of the more rocking songs as far as Beach Boys go. And it's just hard not for me to sing along and get into that song. I just love it. Do It Again.
I think Wall of Voodoo might have done a cover of that, believe it or not.
Really?
80s, yeah. But it's great. It's that
Yeah.
Like that weird. And at the very end, for some inexplicable reason, they tacked on this work sharp. The last part of that where it sounds like banging on hammers and like somebody pounding, something or other. That's actually from Smile. It was called like the workshop section, and that had been recorded for the Smile album. Some segment Brian Wilson wasn't sure how to use, and they tacked it on at the end to Do It Again. Have no idea because it totally does not relate at all to that song, but they thought, oh, I don't know, well, hell, we got the Smile, clip bouncing around, let's just tack it on there. But so just a little footnote there.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, Josh.
All right, my number two, Gary alluded to it earlier. In My Room. I know it's a disturbing kind of song, where it's kind of vulnerable, kind of depressing a little bit. I know when people think of the Beach Boys, they probably think of a lot happier music. But my top two choices are very odd. I'll just say that. But I just always loved this song, In My Room. It was always a song that I loved as a kid. And when I played it this week, I still love it. So In My Room, my number two. Fantastic song.
That's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, my number two, I was going to do I Can Hear Music off of 2020. Just a great song. I looked it up. It was originally a Phil Spector tune. It's a great cover. I don't know. Did the Beach Boys do a lot of covers? I would say no, right? Jeff?
Well, they did earlier on. They did some.
Yeah, they did. Then I Kissed Her.
Okay.
Was Phil Spector, and Then I Kissed Him. As an adaptation of that. But yeah, the Beach
Kiss did it too.
Boys covers over the years.
But I Can Hear Music. So I was going to do that, but you guys have inspired me. I'm going Heroes and Villains number two. So it's my 2B. So I have I Can Hear Music 2A. And I got to go Heroes and Villains. You guys are right. That song is so amazing. And I was going to put it on my list. I should have, but so now it's on.
Nice.
Welcome to the dark side.
Well, thank you.
Well, my number two is, I think, their most haunting song, and it's already been on somebody's list. God Only Knows. Love that song. Just, it gives me chills every time I hear it. And those vocal harmonies, I love that song. The lyrics are so dark. I love dark stuff. It's my metal background, I guess. And yeah, but I've always liked that since I was a kid too. It's just a haunting song. Sticks in your head. You can't get rid of it. And love it.
Yeah, well, didn't Paul McCartney said that was one of his favorite songs, right? Of all time.
Yeah, no question. He still to this day might consider it his favorite song of all time.
Do you know what Frank Sinatra said the most beautiful song ever written was? I'll give you a clue. It was written by George Harrison.
Oh, something.
Something. Yep. Frank Sinatra said that Something was the most beautiful song ever written.
And then he credited it to Lennon and McCartney.
Yeah.
That's
Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. All right, my number two. It was a single. It was never on an album proper, so it's been on. It was originally on the Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3, but then in the 70s, Capitol started reissuing double album compilations of the Beach Boys. The first of which was Endless Summer, and then the second of which was Spirit of America. And the song I'm talking about is The Little Girl I Once Knew. And I did an episode where I covered the Beach Boys and their musical progression and spent some time on this song just because it is so fantastic. All the places that this song goes. I love the opening guitar lick. Ding, 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 ding. And then you got this organ, and then right into the vocals, and then all of a sudden it's just you split, man, and it's like silence, and like, shit, is the record over? That was a quick song, and then like the huge booming chorus, she's not the little, and it's just so, and it just keeps getting higher. And then there's a whole section where there's like this organ, boom, 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 boom. Like we talked about, hear today, you know, like the whole, you know, the instrumental section that just comes out of nowhere. It's the same thing with The Girl That I Once Knew. And then the crescendo at the end, it's just a fantastic song. And, you know, Brian Wilson was so disappointed that it wasn't a hit, but I think it was just too weird for, you know, this was released in late 1965. And I think it was just too bizarre for audiences at that time to kind of digest, because Brian Wilson threw everything and the kitchen sink at you in this song. And it's gorgeous. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. I know it's not on any of your lists, but, you know, go back and re-listen to that track, because it is just, it's so impressive. You know, considering when it was released and that he had still yet to record, you know, Pet Sounds and all that, you know, Good Vibrations and Heroes and Villains, all that good stuff. But it's definitely a signpost to the future. So, all right, number one.
Yeah,
There we go.
just an amazing songwriter. You know, I mean, people who know music and everything, they understand the genius, you know, of Brian Wilson, but I think a lot of people don't really get how much the Beach Boys did, how much he did. I don't, even though within the industry he gets a lot of credit, with the general populace, I don't think he does. And just like you said, that early on, you know, he was already doing, you know, kind of going against the grain, you know, as opposed to just stealing Chuck Berry riffs and talking, you know, throwing in songs about cars and stuff. He also had this other stuff to go along with it.
Right.
My number one song is kind of a cliche, I guess, and it's already been talked about, but Good Vibrations. You know, like Josh said, that's just a perfect song. You know, I to me, I don't think, you know, yeah, how would you improve on that? Everything in that song is just fantastic. Like Aaron said, you know, you don't get tired. You know, you can hear that song. You know, I could listen to that song now, and you know, 2 days from now, and I would still love it. And how many times have you heard it? It's just fantastic. And you know, when it comes toward the end and it gets quiet again, and they just start kind of whispering, you know, gotta keep those love and good vibrations are happening with you. And then they just build on that. And it's just it's a fantastic song. And the whole idea of it, you know, good vibrations, you know, I'm going to send out good vibrations. It's just it's a positive song. You know, I love it. It's a fantastic, perfect song. That's my number one.
Great choice.
Good
Yeah,
choice.
that would have been my number 6. That is a perfect song. It's just, or 7, count the honorable mention. But my number 1 is kind of a weird song. But you know, you guys know, like, I'm a big like Elliott Smith fan, and I could see how the Beach Boys had to have influenced him. But there's a song, and I never heard it before this last 2 weeks, and it's called "Lonely Sea," and it's on Surfing USA. And it's a very short song, and it's got simple lyrics where he's saying the lonely sea, it never stops. It moves along from day to day. That's why my love will never stay. And the harmonies are just perfect. I just wish it was like 30 minutes long. It's like 2 minutes long, and the harmony is just so beautiful, and it's just such a perfect song. And it's haunting. Yeah, I love it. And now I need to go find that vinyl. Because I just could not get enough of that song. I just kept hitting rewind and rewind and rewind. And it just shows what a genius band this was and how they must have influenced so many people after them. You know, I'm ashamed to say that I wasn't a huge Beach Boy fan, but I think that, like, I just didn't expose myself enough to it. But songs like Heroes and Villains and In My Room, and I mean, obviously always loved California Girls and Good Vibration. But if there's anybody else out there that's not a huge Beach Boy fan, and maybe they've only heard Pet Sounds, I will tell you to go listen to a Jeff Witcher playlist or go dive in. And because they have so many fantastic songs that I've never heard before. I'm sure that I'll discover 50 more that I love over the next few weeks. But yeah, that's my number one.
All right.
Nice.
Pick.
Well, this song's been beat to death, but it's my number one. I'm going with Good Vibrations. And, you know, like you guys have all said, I mean, it's the perfect song. And just another little tidbit here, like, I really feel like this song expanded what a pop song could be and what a single could be. And I think just the different movements of the song, there's so much going on. It definitely requires a deeper listen, but I think it expanded people's ears and people's idea again of what a single could be. You know, we're used to these 3-minute little pop things, and here comes Brian Wilson throwing, like Jeff was saying, everything in the kitchen sink at you with Good Vibrations. I know he was talking about a different song, but he does the same thing in Good Vibrations as well. And again, the theremin appears again. Love the sound of that. And you know, it's the perfect song.
Well, and that song was in contention for the Pet Sounds album, but Brian just couldn't finish it to his satisfaction and the time that was needed to put that album out, or it would have been on Pet Sounds. But
Yeah,
it was released as a single in the fall of '66, and then, you know, wound up on the Smiley Smile album, just to kind of give it a home on a record. But
yeah, it's a great song.
mhm.
It is amazing.
Yes.
Think about how much music changed from like 61 to 66, like
Yeah.
sonically. It's just
Oh, yeah.
enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the next 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that whole period. You know, when you think of music between, like, say, 1964 to 1970, somewhere around there, all the advances that were made. I mean, I don't think there'll ever be another period of time where, you know, there's that much of an advancement in music as there was right around then. It's just
Well, the
crazy.
Beach Boys, Beach Boys, recorded Surf and Safari in 61, 62, and then Good Vibrations in 1966. Beatles recorded Love Me Do in 1962. Tomorrow Never Knows in 1966. I mean, think about how much progression there was in the space of 4 years, and then name me another 4-year period where you've got that level of progression. I don't think you can, but yeah, it's just.
But yeah, I mean,
that was Deep Purple too, though. That's another big progression.
Mhm.
yeah, because now everything is pretty much copying what happened from during that period. Like I know on our channels, well, I know at least on mine, I'll show a new band and I'll say, yeah, these guys are like I was talking about the Fleet Foxes. I'm like, yeah, these guys are the modern day Simon and Garfunkel. So like there was that period that you guys are talking about where the magic happened. And I think people have been sort of chasing that ever since.
Well, that's why those albums still sell. Like last year, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac was like one of the highest selling albums of the year. And it's because, the music of the 60s and the 70s still resonates with people.
Yeah.
People still connect with it, even the younger generation. I mean, kids are listening to Fleetwood Mac. Kids are listening to Led Zeppelin, the Beatles. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it crosses genres too, because let's talk about punk for a second. Everything goes back to the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, and the Clash. And that was all 70s,
Yeah.
Metal, we've talked metal before. Everything goes back to Priest, Deep Purple, Zeppelin, all those bands. So there was something that happened in that time period from like mid 60s into the 70s where just like, I don't know, it was this creative period in pop music.
Yeah, and those punk bands, they credited the Who, right? Like so it all kind of ties together to that period.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about all that too is you talking about the Fleet Foxes or whoever, them being influenced by some of these older bands. Well, these bands that we think of, when you're talking like all the bands you mentioned, and then throw in like Pink Floyd in there, and Sabbath, whoever,
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Who were they? They were influenced by like Elvis,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff like that. So look how far they took the music from what they were influenced by, you know. That's what I'm saying. You know, these other bands have never advanced it nearly as much as what those guys did. Because, you know, when those all these artists were born like, you know, right after World War II,
Right.
you know, right around during the baby boom, around that time, and the music that they heard and that they took it and progressed it, there'll never be that kind of progression again, I don't think.
And think about what was pre-Beatles. It was Frank Sinatra, it was early blues, that kind of stuff, but nothing as influential as what, you know, Beatles and Beach Boys and Rolling Stones and all these bands are still being talked about nowadays.
Not to mention the advancements in jazz music in
yeah.
the 50s and 60s, right? It's like there was, I mean, all genres of music were evolving at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
Yep.
This could be another show of ours.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're
We just branched off because now I want to talk about what Miles Davis was doing in the 70s. With his craze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock.
Hey, don't say that word.
Don't say Herbie.
All right, Aaron, you're number one.
For one.
That was like a 15-minute tangent.
Yeah, that's cool. So
Well, I
my
know
number
Aaron
one
wants to talk about jazz, but I'm going to ask you're number one.
Clutch did it. Clutch did a jazz album.
Yeah, they've done some jazz stuff. They're a little jazzy in parts, they actually are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll talk about that another time. But my number one has not been mentioned, which is kind of cool. And I think it's like got the most, one of the best melodies ever written in music. It's just a perfect melody, and it's off this record. It's called "Don't Worry, Baby." I've just it's always been my favorite Beach Boys song since I was a kid. And it's just every time I hear the verses, it's the chorus is almost like worse. The verses are almost better than the chorus. It's just that melody he does in those verses is almost perfect to me. And it just it gives me chills every time I hear it. I know it's like a slower song, but "Don't Worry, Baby" has always been my favorite Beach Boys song. And that's kind of surprising to some people. But
Surprising to me.
Is it? Yeah, it's the
I wouldn't have
melody.
expected that. That's great.
The melody in that song just kills me every time. If you listen to just how he's singing that and the progression it goes, that song goes through, I just love it. And it's, I think it's kind of ahead of its time too. This is a pretty early Beach Boys, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first album to come out after the Beatles. The British invasion. So
obviously there was a Shutdown Volume 1.
Yeah, Shutdown Volume 1 was a compilation of different car songs. The Beach Boys had a couple of tracks on there, but it was not a strict Beach Boys album. But it was called just Shutdown. And then for some inexplicable reason, Capitol said, well, why don't you make your next album Shutdown Volume 2? I mean, I don't think you asked the Beach Boys. I don't think the record company asked you back in those days what you're going to call your album. But
yeah.
Another cool thing about that is it kind of mixes. It's a love song. It's also a car song. It's a song about driving cars and about loving women. And it's just a great song. I just love it. And listen to it again.
The guitar solo on that song. Yeah, the guitar solo on that song, I think inspired Joe Satriani. He points to solo as being like instrumental and like getting him on a guitar, but that's a story for another.
Jeff, can I ask you one Beach Boy question before you give us your number one? Do you prefer the mono or the stereo mixes of those 60s Beach Boys songs or albums?
Well, if you're a purist, you're going to say mono because Brian Wilson was deaf in one ear, so we heard everything in mono. I don't know. I'm kind of a stereo guy. I mean, I know it's blasphemy, but I do like stereo better, I guess. And not that cool. Merits to the mono, but yeah, I don't know. I'm always kind of a stereo guy, but.
Cool. All right.
All right. Well, my number one, I'm going to make it numero cinco, Heroes and Villains.
Hey.
Yeah, love that track. And the interesting story behind that was, I already talked about how Brian Wilson spent so much time on this track. And the Smile, for people who don't know the history of the Beach Boys, Smile was going to be the Beach Boys masterpiece. It was going to compete with the Beatles. It was going to be like even better than Pet Sounds. But then Brian lost confidence in it and he shelved all the session tapes and he reworked Heroes and Villains into a condensed single version, which is still great. It's still a remarkable track, and that's what's on this album. And so, mind you, the Beach Boys hadn't had a single since the fall of 1966 with Good Vibrations. And now we're talking like September of 1967, which back in those days was an eternity to not have any new music, And so Brian Wilson was so excited about Heroes and Villains, and he and the Beach Boys did an unannounced appearance at a local radio station. I think it was in LA. And he had the acetate of Heroes and Villains. And it was like, I don't know, sort of like the late night. It was late into the evening. And he showed up at the radio station and the DJ's there. And Brian Wilson is like, I have an exclusive for your radio station, the brand new Beach Boys single, Heroes and Villains. And the DJ looks at him and says, well, I'm sorry, it's not on the playlist. I can't play it. And yeah, and that like Brian Wilson was just like crushed, and it was like, oh, and his confidence had already been shaken because he wasn't able to put out the Smile album like he wanted. And then, so fortunately the DJ got on the phone with his station manager, and the station manager was like, your mind, absolutely, you can play the you idiot. And so the DJ kind of sheepishly, put it on, and it's kind of like one of those tales of Beach Boys lore. But that's, one of the most interesting stories about that particular track. But yeah, I mean, it's all the things, and one of the biggest compliments I can pay to that track is sometimes you don't know, is that their voices or is that an instrument? Is that an instrument or is that the Beach Boys voices? Because they can do so many remarkable things with their voices. And just the melodies and the harmonies, I love the boys and girls, the whole boys and girls thing, and just so many unique vocal acrobatics that the Beach Boys do on that track. It's just an amazing song to listen to. Should have been a bigger hit than it was, but maybe the theme wasn't universal enough for the record buying public back in 1967, who wanted more of a love song like Good Vibrations. Don't know, but at any rate, that's my number one. So this was a lot of fun for me. Hopefully it was a lot of fun for you guys also. And hopefully we've given you some music to check out if you were not already aware or familiar with these songs. But thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That didn't make it.
Thank you.
The numbers talked about, they're really great though. Just really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It was really hard for me to leave these two songs off. It was I Get Around and Catch a Wave. I just love those. But those two especially were really hard for me to leave off. I just want to at least mention I Get Around and Catch a Wave. I love them. So
Me too.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think I Get Around was the Beach Boys' first number one.
nice.
Yeah,
That's
and it was
great
right
song.
after. It was like, take that, Beatles. Beach Boys can record a number one too. The Beach Boys, I mean, as many hits as they had up to that. I mean, think about all the hits that they had up to that point. Surfing USA and In My Room and like all the Don't Worry Baby, Fun. All those tracks. None of them hit number one. But I Get Around was the magic bullet, and it got them their first number one hit. So
It's a good one.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.